So go to AWS management console, log in with your credentials. So you have to choose a root user and not IAM user. So once you are done with this captcha, you will be prompted with your password. It's IFF54D. I've logged into my Amazon console. Like when you log into your Amazon console, what are the things that you have to take care of the day-to-day basis? It's like first thing, go to your account name. Okay. With the name you created, you would have got your account name here. Okay. So this name, if you click it, it will drop down you with few details, and like you have to worry about the billing dashboard. So make sure whenever you work with Amazon management console, you come here every day and see if something is costing you or not. Suppose if you find something is costing you, you have to immediately delete it. So for me, they have charged something for the EC2 and they've charged something for the Route 53. So that is okay because I'm not like taking 5-6 batches a day and not like I'm using it very rigorously. So that is the reason they have charged me. But for you, if they charge anything, you have to address it very immediately. Suppose if they've charged you some amount and like if you're not able to delete the resources associated to it, please do reach me out. I'll help you to delete it. Sometimes it might go until 3 or 4 thousand if you leave the databases and all for 2-3 days. So it is always good to keep track of everything, whatever you do. And like make sure other thing is like the region. So whenever you want to work with any resources, you have to choose the region. This region is a high level architecture in Amazon. Okay. So I will talk a little about this region today. Okay, how Amazon is constructed is through three components. One is the region. Okay, you will have multiple regions in Amazon. Okay, I'll show you how many regions you have, but you will have multiple regions. Say for example, this is going to be the US North zone, US hyphen or East zone, US hyphen East hyphen 1. So similarly, you will have another zone which is called West, US hyphen West hyphen 1. Again, you will have some other region mentioned that Europe, EU hyphen East hyphen 1. So assume that you have a lot of regions. There are around 20 regions now in AWS, which is available for the public use. Okay. So this is the first hierarchical structure in the Amazon. Okay. We call this as a geographical location of the data centers that are placed around. Okay. So in each region, what Amazon has done is like it has created multiple data center. Okay. We consider this as a region, and this region we will have multiple data centers. We call these data centers as availability zones. Okay, availability zones. So assume that, for example, in this US East hyphen 1, I'm going to have 3 different availability zone, for example. But in the real use case, it will be 6, but that is okay. But assume that we have at least something called as availability zones, which is 3 in numbers. So in the areas where these availability zones are available and in the other areas where these availability zones are not available, now we have a third thing which is called as edge location. These are the delivery destinations of Amazon. So if some web page that you have hosted on AWS and if you want to retrieve it, the load balancer or this availability zones will push all the content and cache it over to this edge location, and this edge location will deliver your content. Okay, these are the 3 things that we must understand. One is availability zone, other one is edge location, other one is the first level of hierarchy is region. So what we must know is like in the region, there will be a lot of availability zones and edge location to deliver your content. What is the purpose of this availability zone is to make your data highly available. Say for example, I'm living in a place which is called as AZ1. Okay. And if I rely only on this AZ1 and if and I keep all my servers in this particular data center, and if some fire accident happens or no, like if natural calamities happens, this, if by any chance if I miss this data center or if this data center is lost, I'll miss all my data. Okay, so that should not be the case whenever we work with a highly available architecture. So what we will do is like we will, whenever we wanted to deploy one application on top of cloud, we will put it under two different places. Okay, maybe at least in two different places, starting one on AZ1 and one on AZ2. And in order to send the load equally to this, we will have something called as load balancer in between. Okay, that will split the load from this two availability zone. Okay, so assuming only one use case, if one is gone, we will have another data center with all our data. That is the assumption. Okay, so this is the high level architecture which is available, which we should know before we jump into any of the sessions. So now what we have to do is like we have to sensibly understand which region we have to work for. Okay, so if we are going to work on a system where your client is based out of US, you can choose US region. Okay, or if you're working for a project where no like your people are working in India, then you have to choose an India region. So there is one region in India which is called as Mumbai. Check out where it is. Yeah, here. So if you check this, all the servers that we are going to create will be hosted on Mumbai. So that is the nearest data center for us, right? So it will be very good if you guys use this Mumbai data center in order to create your servers and other components on top of AWS. But what I am going to do is like I am going to choose only OIO. The reason is I have started using it already. So I don't use multiple data centers. I don't create multiple servers on multiple regions. The reason is no like I tend to forget in which region which resource I created. So I always go with this Mumbai, Ohio or Northern Virginia. And for this AWS Amazon account, I have choose to use Ohio. Okay. So throughout my session, I'm going to create resources only in this region. But as I said, I'm suggesting you to create resources on Mumbai region, which is the nearest thing for us. Okay. So do you guys have any doubt until this point? If you want to ask any questions, ask me.
Can
Or
you
just
explain about
This
the
is
edge
it.
locations?
edge locations are the delivery points. We will be seeing a separate service called as content delivery network. Okay, that time we will see in depth about this edge location. At this right point of time, if you know availability zone is for the high available architecture and edge location for the application endpoint delivery, that should be sufficient. But we will understand about this edge location in detail when we look into a service which is called as content delivery network.
Uh, Hello, Zuhair here.
Yes,
Now we are going to use the Mumbai data center for this one to create our deploy our server or the application also. If I'm not reachable to the Mumbai data center, so this possible they can shift it to me to other region or the other geographical location for the load balancer or the connectivity. If something happens, so how will I go with
no,
the
I did not
use my
get your question. And first thing is, no, it is not a mobile data center. Okay.
okay.
It is not a mobile data center. It is a physical data center located in only one region. You will not be able to transport the data center from one region to another.
Okay, so it is if Mumbai data center something happened for this one, okay, and I'm not able to reach this said data center. In this case, I'm not able to use my applications or the servers which I'm taking the service from the Amazon. Is it possible? Or they will shift it to me another zone or another
No,
geographical
no,
zone,
Amazon
like
will
for the
not handle you that way. Okay. So
okay,
assume that this is Mumbai. Okay. This is Mumbai. So in Mumbai, we'll have three availability zones located at the distance of at least 80 kilometers each. Okay. Our assumption is pretty straightforward. If one of the data center is gone or lost,
Okay.
we will be able to support the system with two other data centers. So this distance between this data center and this data center is like at least 80 kilometers. There is a very minimum chance that no, like all three data centers are gone.
Yes. Within a one geography, we can interchange for the data center for this one,
We will
but
be
not the
not
not between
interchange.
the.
We should be sensibly creating an architecture which will use all three availability zones. So one
Yeah.
fourth of the system is gone. We should
Yeah.
be in a position to use two-third of, I mean, like one-third of this data center is gone. We will be able to use the two-third of the system and no, like maintain the architecture up and running. So that is objective. So it is not that Amazon will help you out in this. Only thing Amazon is can give you is the list of features that is available. They have built a very good network and they have built a very good features for end user.
Okay.
It is the cloud engineer's responsibility to build an architecture, no, which is highly stable. So being an
Okay.
architect, you should be in a position to create an architecture. Okay. So what I will
Okay.
do is like I will create uh, one server in each of this availability zone. Okay. And I will
Okay.
use it. Suppose if one is gone, I'll have other two. What I will do is
That's
like
so.
I will set up a similar setup in the other region. Say, for example, the nearest region from Mumbai is Singapore. Okay. The Singapore, I
Okay.
will create a replica of everything and I will say this is the disaster recovery system and this is the actual
Okay.
production system. So if
Mm.
something happens to the production system, I will
Mm-hmm.
fail over to the disaster recovery system so
This is
that I will have only minimal downtime and not complete application down.
okay. So one region we can put the like a production environment, and one is the disaster recovery environment.
Yes, it is not the Amazon suggested way. It is the
Right.
architect who has to decide what is required for his particular requirement.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Fine.
So one thing we must know, like keep in mind, no, like if whatever issue happens, and if you go back to Amazon and say no, like it is a problem that we are facing from Amazon, only reply
Mm-hmm.
we will get is like you have not utilized the features of Amazon very well. So
Mm.
Amazon has got a lot of features, lot of backup features, lot of features to safeguard your application. Okay.
Yes.
But if you're not using it and if you go back to Amazon and say if you will be able to recover things for me, Amazon, no one
Mm.
will respond. They will just suggest you this option. You should have gone through this option. Now your
Okay.
data is gone. There is no thing we can suggest of going forward. Follow this architecture and they will suggest you one architecture.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So let me jump into the EC2. Okay. EC2 is a service which is responsible for EC2 means Elastic Compute Cloud. The service is responsible of creating servers. Okay, creating servers. So why do we need to create servers? Why we have to create servers?
To hosting the application, the deployment of the application.
To host application. That is the right answer.
Mm.
So in order to deploy our application, we need something called as servers. Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the types of servers you are aware of? What are the different servers that you are aware of? Linux. Yeah.
Windows, Linux.
Windows. Great. And now like Amazon is also supporting something called as Macintosh Mac. Okay. So nowadays Mac is becoming popular day by day, and the Amazon is the only cloud service provider who is supporting the Mac OS for the end users. Okay. But our session is going to rely only on Windows and Linux operating systems. So what we will do today is like we will create a server which is of type Linux. Okay. Linux server creation. So in order to create a Linux or Windows server, I should know few details. Okay. First thing is like I have to select an image which is of Linux type. Okay. Selecting an image. Someone is trying to speak. So this part we call it as AMIs, Amazon Mission Image. So this AMIs will have lot of images that might be Windows or Linux or Mac or Windows 2008 or Linux. We'll have multiple flavors. We'll have lot of images, like 5,000 plus images we have. Okay. Out of them, we have to select which Linux we want. Okay. This is the place where we will select that. Second thing what we have to worry about is we should know what is the configuration of the server. How much GB of So how much GB of RAM and cores I should allocate for this mission? This information generally you used to get from your client. Okay, he must be saying you like what is that application that is going to be installed requires. Okay, how much GB of RAM or how many cores of mission cores of CPUs I need to run a particular application. This information I should be getting from my client. Okay. Third thing is like the network components. Okay. So in which network I should place my server. Fourth thing is like we must understand what are the storage components that I need to attach, or how much storage that this machine should have is required. Fifth thing is like we have to understand about the names or the metadata of the server. What is metadata? Metadata is nothing but some meaningful information about the server. Say, for example, it might be name, type, who created, and purpose. All these are some metadata examples. Next thing is we have to understand about the firewall configuration of the server. So firewall will decide who has to connect on which port. This is something we will be discussing in the firewall session. And then we will create an authentication file called as PIM file. PIM file. Okay. And we will log into the server. So selecting an image is called as an AMI. Configuring a server is called as an instance type. We have to select an appropriate instance type. So third stage, we will be deciding about the network. This area we call it as VP configure instances. And we will not be seeing this today because we will have a dedicated session where we will be discussing about the VPC, and there we will look into what is this network is all about. Storage is how much GB of RAM and know how much configuration of machine is required. All these details will be mentioned in storage. And metadata, we call it as a tags. Firewall is in AWS, we call it a security group. These are the information that we must have before we jump into the server creation. PIM is authentication private key that is available. Okay, so it is a private key which is used to log into the server. So if you have these information, we will be able to create a server. So in order to work in an organization, you will get a request from your client saying that they got a server which is of XYZ type, and you have to get me a Linux or a Windows server for me so that I will deploy this application onto the server. That is how the request comes in the real time. So you have to create an Excel sheet and you have to create a form like thing, no, and ask him. So what is the OS that you want? What is the image that you want? What is the RAM of your application? What is the RAM that your application will require? What network this application should be placed? How much GB of RAM, how much GB of hard disk this should have? What are the tags that you wanted to name the server? What are the security group ports and no like IPs that should be whitelisted in the server? And do you have any default authentication file so that I can map the server to that particular file? You have to ask all these details to your end client. Okay. And you have to get these details before you create a server, because only with these details you'll be able to create a server. If you don't have these details, you will be left blank at some stage. Okay. So anyone is having any doubt or any questions regarding all these steps: AMI, instance types, configure instances, storage, tags, security key, and authentication mechanism? Anyone is having any questions here, please do ask me.
It's Harry here. Can you again tell me that AMI, we can select all the server images, right? In AMI.
Yes. Assume that you're going to install one application or install a Windows operating system on top of your laptop. So what you require? Have you ever tried to install one Windows or Linux operating system on your laptop or on your desktop?
No.
No. Okay. So what do you think is required to do that?
Okay. OS. You are talking about OS, right?
Correct.
Then the software for all the hardwares.
OS is the software for all hardware. Okay, let me tell you this. Okay, so what you'll have is like you'll have something called a CD or a pen drive. Okay, in the pen drive or CD, you will have all the OS files kept at one place. And when you try to put that CD or pen drive and try to run the application on top of this, the OS installation starts, right? The content which is in the pen drive or CD is similar to the content which is available here. We call it as an AMI. What the people have done is like they have installed the server and no like taken the template of the installation. Okay, template of the server which they've already installed. Okay, and they have configured in a way that no like when someone reuse this, a new product key will be assigned to the machine and licensed server will hop up. So it is like a server's backup. We use the server backup to launch a new server. So that is what we do here. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So any questions, any other questions?
Can you please tell about what is the metadata?
Okay. So what is metadata? So you are...
Yes, Jagan sir.
Yeah, okay. You are working in an organization, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me about your organization? Like what is the purpose of your organization? What type of organization you work in?
Actually, it's at a WIPE organization. WIPE means voice over internet protocol they are
Okay.
doing.
So what is the name of the organization?
Unified Voice Communication Private Limited.
Okay. What is the major product that this organization is using?
Yeah, majorly we are just doing that for the virtual numbers. We are just provided to our virtual numbers like US numbers and Australia numbers.
Okay. So I'm asking you these information, right? I'm asking you this information about your company, right? So
Yes,
these
sir.
are the metadata of your company. So something is defining your company with some information, right? This is the metadata. So if I ask your name and where you work and know like what is your age and what is your gender, this is the metadata of you. Okay. Similarly,
Okay.
I'm creating a server and I'm going to understand some information about the server. So if I am creating, I will know the information about the server. So assume that I'm creating the server and without creating any name or any other details, I'm leaving the organization. The next guy comes and no, he will not understand what is the purpose of the server. So what I do is like when I create the server, I will provide necessary information. So this necessary information is called as a metadata. What I will do is like this server name is Linux and the purpose is test demo, and who has to use it? Vignesh, that is me. And what is the type of the OS? It is T2 micro. Some information I'm giving that.
Okay. For specification users, we just need to finalize that one.
Correct. Information about a component is called as a metadata. Data is data. So here it is our server, and the data that we are going to explain about our server is called as a metadata. You understood my point?
Yes, sir. I got it, sir.
Any other question?
Need to know about this one's configure instance.
Sorry?
Need to know about in the configure instance, because in which the network, so how we assign the network.
Yeah, that I've already told you. No, like you'll have a separate session called as VPC, Virtual Private Cloud, where we'll be seeing in-depth of networking concepts. Okay. At this right point of time, we will see this particular step. For today's session, I'm not going to jump into this step at all. I'm going to exclude the step and no, like I am going to use the default values. Okay.
Okay.
So any other question?
Yes, sir. What is mean by private key?
So private key is an authentication mechanism. Have you ever worked with Linux operating system before?
Yes, sir. I work with the Palo Alto, Netgear, and all. I know about
So
the firewall. The private key. Why we using for private keys, sir? That and all.
So whenever we work with Linux operating system, there is a way that we can authenticate to the Linux system. Okay, that is through private key and public key. There is a command called SSS keygen. Have you ever used it in your? What is the
Yes.
purpose of it? What happens when you use that SSH keygen?
Keygen is used for some product activations or couple of apps.
Definitely not.
Hmm.
So that will enable you to establish communication between one system to another system, okay, in a passwordless manner. Okay, so what we do is like we create something called as PEM key, which is privacy enhanced mail. It is a private key. So you will have something called whenever an operating system works, we will have two components. One we call it as a public key, and other one we call it as a private key. Okay, so this public key will be assigned to the server. Okay, this private key will be transported to the end user. So we can consider this public key as a lock. And in order to open the lock, we need something called as private key. So public key is the lock, private key is the key.
Okay.
So in order, Amazon will give you this public key, this private key, and we have to use this private key to unlock the server. Okay, that is the objective. So people working on Linux will be very much familiar with this private key and public key. I'm speaking in a very layman term so that no everyone in this session here can understand. I know there are few freshers here. I know there are few people who are experienced, 7+ years of experience are also here. There are people who are from the different domain and they want to switch over to cloud or here as well. So I'm putting it in a very layman term. So we have something called as private key, which is provided while creating the server. This private key is used to unlock the server. The server has a public key. Server public key acts as a lock, and this private key acts as a key. So whichever server is having this lock, which is matching to the key, can be accessible with this private key. Any other doubts?
Okay.
No. Okay. Please proceed. I don't have any doubt.
Okay, back. Shall we proceed?
Yeah, yeah. Please,
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
that's it.
So let me come back to my AWS management console. Just give me a second. We close the session. So that was our management console. Okay, I've told you about 5 or 6 different steps to create the server, right? Let me follow the same steps. First is no, I'm going to click launch instance. Okay, what I'm going is like I'm going to the service here above and I'm going to type something called as EC2, or I can find this EC2 under this session of the compute. Okay, the first service under this compute. So whatever service, no, whatever uh, thing which is highlighted here, we call it as a group. Okay, and whatever things which is not highlighted, we call it as a service. In under compute group, we have something called as EC2. So this is what we are going to look in today, and that too exclusively we are going to look in about the Linux operating system. Okay, so I'm clicking this out and it is asking me an option. It is showing me what are the components that I have already created, and it is very well, the keys and security groups will not cost you any money. So you can have any number of keys and any number of security groups, but the other components we use, right, that will cost you a lot of money. Okay, make sure that everything is zero as such. Okay, so I'm going to click this option called as launch instances. So in this stage, it will prompt you for some information. So in my case, it is asking for the OS. So I've told you that I'm going to use an operating system which is free of cost. Okay. So in order to use the operating system which is free of cost, I should always choose a server which is tagged with this element, which is called as free tier eligible. Are you able to see this free tier eligible icon here?
Yes, sir, it's visible, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Whenever these are the different types of images available, and only under few images you'll able to see this free tier eligible, right? We have to choose that image in order to work with AWS, in order to work in AWS for free of cost. Okay, so assume that if I'm going to use Linux, I'll be able to see a lot of image Linux versions. Have you heard of Red Hat Linux?
Yes, I hear.
The Red Hat, Ubuntu, Debian, SUSE, and Fedora. There is a lot of Linux images available, and you'll be able to choose anything you want. Okay, but make sure that you choose an image which is of free of cost. You can make sure that by clicking this option, free tier only. If you check this box, it will prompt you. It will get you the servers which are available only for free. Okay. So I'm going to choose an AWS mission, which is an entity of the Red Hat Enterprise Limited. Okay. I'm going to choose this Amazon Linux. This is the first step. AMI is selected. Second step is the instance type. So I told you that we will be getting the requirements from the client for about the RAM and virtual cores. Okay. So let me wait for this to load. Okay, so first thing is we have to understand what is the RAM. So your client is going to give you how much GB of RAM does he requires. If he requires 16 GB and 4 cores of virtual CPUs, I can choose 4 and 16. If he is requiring 2 and 4, I can choose this. If you go down to the very end, you'll be able to see all the configurations. It might go to the very large number as well, 64, 96, 768 GB of RAM. So based on your requirement, you're going to choose your option. But for me, I have only one server which can be used for free. Again, you see this free tier eligible icon here, right? So make sure you always go with the model which is called as T2 micro. This instance type is the only available instance type which is free of cost. Okay. Select this out, go to the next stage. In the next stage, we'll deal about the configure instances, which is the networking part. I'm not going to touch this networking part right at this moment. So I'm going to skip this and I'm going to the next step where I'll be discussing about the storage. So if you want to increase the storage, you can increase it to any number, but that number should not exceed 30 GB because free tier eligible customers can get only up to 30 GB of RAM. So if you cross this limit, you'll be charged very badly. So if you want to have an additional volume, you can still have it, but still both should comprises to a number which should be less than 30 GB. Okay. So with this, I have my next component. Okay, I did not tell you about this delete on termination, right? So this delete on termination is an option which is available to make sure that you delete, whenever you delete your server, the volume attached to this server has to be deleted. Okay, so if you don't check this, you will delete the server, but the volume will be accumulated as such. And later when you forget to delete this volume, you might incur some charges. So in order to make sure that you completely delete all the resources in this EC2, you ensure that you check this option out. Okay. So let me go to something called as add tags. So here in tags, what I'll do is like I will have a meaningful name. Name is Linux server. And purpose is demo. Date of creation is date of creation DOA file, mark it as. And today's date is going to be, what is the today's date? 4th May 0405 2021. Okay. So likewise, I can have n number of information about this server. Okay. So this is the metadata. Next is security group. In security group, there is a thing which explains you which connection should allow communication to the server. By default, Linux server will be accessed with the port number which is called as 22. It is open. Say for example, if you want to open some other port, let me open the port number which is called as 80, and to which IP your port should work. So if I mark it as anywhere, anyone in this world can connect to your server. If you have any specific requirement saying that only from my laptop I have to connect, what you have to do is like you have to go to the laptop and you have to search for something called as my public IP. And that will give you your public IP address which your internet service provider has given you. You see this is your public IP, and you have to paste this public IP here so that only you will be able to connect to the server and others in this world will not be able to get into the server. Okay, it is the firewall and the safety mechanism that is available in AWS, which is called a security group, which will ensure that who has to connect on which port. Click review on launch. It was asking me to review all the configurational information that I have given and make sure that everything is right or not. If I find everything is appropriate and correct, what I will do is like I will click this option which is called as launch. This launch option will ask you whether I have to use the existing key pair, which is a PIM file, or new key pair. I will say new key pair and I will mark today's date 0405 2021, and I will download a file called as keeper. And with this keeper, once this is downloaded, I will click launch instance. going to click this option called as view instances. And I'll be able to see this mission is pending for creation. So it hardly takes 4 to 5 minutes. We'll wait and we will start.
Sir, all the time we need to create a key pair, sir,
First time you have to create.
for any domain, Windows or Linux, for first time only.
No, only one time you have to create, and you can use a key n number of times. But if your architecture is requiring multiple keys, you can do that as well.
Oh,
We'll wait for this to initiate. Okay, if you see this, it will say status checks are completed, 2x2 checks are completed. We have to wait until that point.
Hello. Hello, Vignesh.
Yeah,
Myself, Ashwin.
sorry,
Myself, Ashwin.
I'm not able to hear you. Your voice is very low.
Oh.
Can you be a little louder?
Myself, Ashwin.
Yeah, please tell me.
Regarding this storage volumes, we can add multiple storage volumes, right?
Correct.
So it is like in Windows we are adding C, D, E. Is that like similar
Exactly. Exactly. So in Windows, you'll have the C drive, D drive, and E drive. In Linux, we'll call it as root volume and additional volume.
to that? Okay, and we have full control over all the volumes, right?
Yeah, we will have control over the volumes. Correct.
Okay. So, for example, if I want to deploy my application, or I can so if I want to store some data, I can select any of the volumes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
But
okay, fine.
literally, application data will not be stored in the volume. So that is not a very good practice of working.
Okay,
Okay. Generally, Windows application, generally application volume should be placed in the centralized storage server, or in the remote repository or somewhere else. You should not store that in the server itself, because if the server is crashed or something happens to the server, you will miss the data. So always you should have a third party system where your server will produce data, and that data will be produced in some share. Will be copied to some share, and it should be kept safe there, not inside the server. That's a best practice that we follow in the organization. Okay.
okay.
Okay. So let me show you how to connect to the server. In order to connect to the server, you must have something called as PuTTY installed. Okay. PuTTY is a utility which is used to connect to Linux server. Okay. What you have to do is, like, you have to go to Google and you have to type something called as PuTTY. And in PuTTY, you can check this option out. Okay. Here, if you click it, you'll be able to download PuTTY in your machine. And once it is downloaded, you'll be able to see an icon like this. So you see this, right? This is the utility that I have asked you to download. Okay. Once you download PuTTY, you will also get one another utility which is called as PuTTY Gen. Okay. So when you install putty, you will have something called as putty, as well as you will have something called as putty gen. Okay. So putty gen. Okay. Now you have two components. One is putty, other one is putty gen. So what is the purpose of putty and what is the purpose of putty gen? So I've told you, like, we have got a key which is called as a PIM key, right? Privacy enhanced mail is a key format that we have got. And if I double click and open it, I'll be able to see it in a weird format. It will start from, okay, file does not have an app associated to perform this action. That is okay. I'll try to open the file and I will show you. Open. You see this? This is the key file. Your key file, when you download it, you'll be able to see in this format. Okay, we don't understand what is the raw text inside it. It is some encrypted key that is kept in place. This encrypted key is used to decrypt the lock which is on the server. Okay, basic understanding. This is a private key. So what we are doing is, like, we are going to use a utility which is called as putty to log into the system. In order to log into the putty system, we must have a private key which is putty formatted. Okay, we cannot use the key which we downloaded directly from the AWS console. In order to work with putty, I need a key which is in the format that putty accepts. In order to create that format of file which putty accept, I have to use this utility called as putty gen. It is a key generator. So all you have to do is like two steps. One is the load step, where you will be pointing out your key file. In my case, my key file is 0405 something, right? I'll mark all files, and my file is this one, 0405 I'm checking this out, and second step, I'm clicking the save option. First thing is load, second thing is save. So once I save this, it is asking for the place where I have to save it. I'll save it in the same file name, 0405 but this time the extension is going to be .ppk. So .pem file to ppk is the conversion that happens with this putty generator. Clicking this one, and I got a new file created in my downloads repository. So now what I will do is, like, I will connect to the server by getting into some server information. So this is the server I want to connect. I'm going down here and I'm getting the public IP address of the server, and I'm coming back to putty. And here in putty, I'm going to place this server IP and check this out very closely. In the left pan, I'm going to some place which is called as SSH, clicking this out, and I'm clicking this authentication. Here I'm going to browse and place my ppk file, which is this one. You see this 0405 and the format is putty private key. This is the file we created some time back, like 2 to 3 minutes back. We created this file, right? I'm going to point this file to this place and I'm going to click open. The default username for this EC2 is EC2-user. And when I click enter, I'll be able to authenticate to the server very successfully. See, now I'm in the server. So this is how you have to log into the Linux operating system. I'm going to close the session now. Okay. So please do ask me if you have any questions, or else we are good for the day.